Kevin Smith, the Kevin Smith, was releasing a new movie called The 430 Movie about his life before Clerks, I was hella pumped. And then I saw the trailer and it looked like a real movie and not just a Jay and Silent Bob vehicle, and I was doubly pumped. The reason this was so exciting to me was because for the past 10 or so years, Smith has only made extensions or sequels to his View Askew movies. Clerks 3, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, Yoga Hosers. All of these might be great for fans, but they don't have as much appeal for people who wouldn't necessarily get the references that these films are fueled by. And while I am one of those super fans who appreciates a good niche reference,
nothing can kill the grimace.
I am first and foremost a movie lover, and I would much rather watch a standalone film like Red State over something that feels like I'm being inundated by nostalgia. So going into this, I thought the 430 movie would be the best of both worlds. A quasi-autobiographical story with a defined vision that would appeal to non-fans, while offering Easter eggs for people in the know. Because this wasn't just based on his life, it was based loosely on a very specific phase that he likes to call Emo Kev, which he immortalized on his podcast Smodcast in 2012 over 4 hours. In summation, I felt like I had earned this moment being a Kevin Smith and film aficionado. So in the movie, Brian, the character that represents Smith, asks his crush who's 1 year younger than him, Melody, out to the 430 showing of a rated R movie. Thus the title. They had a fling a year prior, but nothing came of it because he didn't have the confidence to pursue it further, since she was this cool and smart cheerleader type, and he was, well, Kevin Smith-esque. From the opening, the film suggests it's gonna be about him finally going after the girl and redeveloping that connection. So when Brian, immediately after getting off the phone from asking her to the movies with his friends, goes to the movies with his friends, you would expect for her to show up soon, right? Wrong. For a movie set up to be about a guy's dream relationship, we sure spend a lot of time not focusing on that relationship. Melody's only in like the first 5 minutes of the film and basically disappears until the third act. So what do we do for that hour where she's not there? Nothing. Actually nothing. The entire movie feels like a jumble of aimless scenes strung together to pad time until we finally see her again. Most of this padding is spent with his friends Bernie and Belly as they hang out at the movie theater, watch movies, and trying to get one of them back inside after being accused of exposing himself to a child. Yeah, that's a little weird. He didn't actually do it, but that's an interesting choice to write in. Now you might think that watching Downtime with a group of buddies wouldn't be so bad in a Kevin Smith film. I mean, he did build a career on writing interesting, insightful conversations between quirky characters. But again, he would be wrong. Hanging out with them isn't fun because these kids suck. The Kevin character is fine, but his minions are either too weird and snivelly, Belly, or just loud and obnoxious, and I hate him, Bernie. The actors didn't really have the range to pull off whatever their main trait was and lovable, which made the conversations, switching between awkward talks about sex and complaining about Brian inviting a girl that never shows up, drag even more. And the absence of meaningful character development makes their mid-movie conflict even dumber. So about halfway through the movie, as you would probably guess with it being the midway conflict, the three of them get banned for, again, sneaking Belly, who's now actually been caught pleasuring himself in the bathroom, back into the theater for a second time. So after getting kicked out, Brian and Bernie have a fist fight in the alley beside the theater. Why, you ask? Well, it's because Bernie is jealous that Brian landed such a perfect girl. And Brian is sad that Bernie's been so negative about his date because he looks up to him like a brother and wants his approval. Now, no one's hinted towards those emotions or feelings or dynamics throughout the entire movie leading up to this part. So thank God this dork decides to spill all this information and exposition from out of nowhere. And what's his reason for knowing all of this?
I just don't talk as much as the two of you since you guys never shut the hell up. That gives me a lot of time to listen, and here's what I've learned.
What? The first time we see you, you're screaming Bob and Dave McKenzie quotes.
Good day, how's it going? I'm Bob McKenzie, it's my brother Doug.
How's it going, 8?
And most of the film, you've either been saying stupid shit, masturbating to a drawing of a pooping and naked lady, or literally sleeping. Not listening, not observing, just being a weird little sex pest. You see, this works for Bob because he actually never talks. He's just a cute little guy. Belly, on the other hand, is not. And it felt extremely off-putting and legit shocked me to the point where I had to turn off the movie and rant for like 15 minutes. But it's okay, because thankfully, we're only with his friends like 50% of the time. The other half is taken up by cameos. Some of these appearances are short and sweet, like these 2 seconds of Jeff Anderson in a line, nothing offensive. But that was the exception, not the rule. Most of the time, these cameos took up full scenes where the actors talk at the 3 main characters for minutes on end about, again, nothing. And not nothing like regular Kevin Smith monologues that usually have something memorable or insightful to say, but more like random clumps of sentences held together by what felt like loose improv and ironic jokes about the 80s.
Bill Cosby. That man will always be beloved.
There will never be another Star Wars movie made.
Nobody's ever gonna pay to see a Batman movie.
We get it. The 80s were different. The future's unpredictable. Enough. So as these vignettes went on, I started to get more and more itchy knowing that every time I encountered them, I would have to wait even longer before I can even hope for things to get going again. In the same vein though, Kevin was able to squeeze in more of his friends into the film through these grindhouse style trailers we see before getting a glimpse of a Flash Gordon knockoff movie. Now these tangents I didn't mind. They were fun and added texture into what was a fairly flat experience. They were unnecessary as they didn't contribute to the plot, but you get what you can get. At this point, I would like to note that I actually did have a favorite scene in this movie, and it was one of these cameos. So Brian's mom calls him at the theater to talk about a bunch of random nonsense, like how he needs to wash a cat and this letter that she got, and then asks him how the movie was despite her calling right in the beginning of it. I have had that phone call with my mom. I appreciate the representation, 10 out of 10. But outside of all of that, there's really not much to say about the movie because it was honestly just really boring. But what the movie lacked in substance, it made up for in Easter eggs to Kevin Smith's past for diehard fans. Just a few that I was able to notice are Bernie O'Donnell and Belly are supposed to be references to his childhood friends Ernie O'Donnell and Bellicose, the tape recorder he spoke into, quoting Bob and Doug McKenzie, 24 Karat Case of Love, Melody wanting to be a dean and him a writer, the cats. Oh my god, the cats. There's a lot, and it was really fun pointing them out and explaining the history to my fiance as we watched. Remember, I love Kevin Smith. The problem is that deep knowledge is also probably why it disappointed me so much, because I know the Emo Kev story and I know what it could have been. Melody is actually based on Kevin's high school girlfriend Kim, who was in fact a year younger than him. They were madly in love. In high school, they had already planned their adult lives where she was going to be a dean. He had a pipe dream of being an SNL writer. They had their future kids' names picked out. They had a goal for a life that they wanted to work toward together. But their relationship kept going off again and on again. And while Kevin believed their plan was in motion every time they restarted things, as Kim grew up, she realized she didn't want to be tied down to an unmotivated older guy whose only real ambition was to marry her and start a family. And worse, Kevin was kind of abusive. One time she mentioned that she'd fooled around with some guy before she and Kevin dated, and Kevin got really insecure about that and wanted to test how much she loved him. So he snuck into her room when she wasn't there, took down her Kevin shrine, wrote Kim loves whatever the guy's name was on her wall, and left her yearbook open to the picture of the guy. Like, it was fucked up. And it just so happened to be the inspiration for the hockey rink scene in Chasing Amy. Eventually, they ended their relationship for good, which led to Emo Kevin at 20 years old riding his bike around Highlands, recording his thoughts on how lost he felt and how much he still loved Kim. This was a huge part of the Kevin Smith origin story. The heartbreak, being left by his younger girlfriend, being stripped of his dreams of normality and meaning, contributed to him deciding to do something with his life and go to film school. I was looking forward to seeing how Kevin would tackle this extremely significant arc that he's barely touched in film in a non-symbolic way. But that's not what we got. Instead, it felt like Kevin used facts his fans would know to give the illusion of something meaningful, when really he was just making another version of the same pandering material he's written for a decade. In fairness, I recognize that 85% of people going to see Kevin Smith movies are his supporters who love feeling like they're part of the in-group. But another part of me wonders if he's been marinating for too long in the narrative of his life. If he's become numb to the raw truth and openness that made him resonate with so many people in the first place. Like Clerks. Clerks felt like a man who had a unique perspective and wanted to share it with the world. Maybe he's so removed from these experiences and struggles that he has trouble seeing what made his previous work so important. It wasn't the references or the Easter eggs that you can only get if you steep yourself in his lore, but the feeling that you've got a friend that understands you, that you're not alone. I really don't know. But what I do know is that I hope Kevin keeps making movies like this. Not ones that fit the same template he's been following recently, but where he tries to tell new stories that tap into what it means to be a human and actually make a movie that changes someone's life. Not a scavenger hunt of jokes from his podcast for people that already know him. And Kevin, if you're watching this, and I think there's a chance that you might be, I wanted to let you know that I truly appreciate and respect you. My parents were very liberal with what they let me watch, so I imprinted on you when I was 8 years old watching Clerks the animated series, and you've basically helped define and form my voice for my entire life. I am the biggest Kevin Smith fan I know. When I was 18 years old, I convinced my parents to drive me from Toronto to New Jersey to visit your comic book store Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, and I knew to call Walt the Lon Chaney in the 90s because I had listened to the Clerks commentaries so many times. I attended as many of your performances and meet and greets as I possibly could.
Ariana, give it up for Ariana, is doing that.
Including your one at Gotham Comics in Mississauga. You gave me a hug, and it was the best day of my life.
Yes, I am. Do you want to make... Oh.
I made a 30-minute long video documenting the history of Clerks the animated series. I was asked to be on a podcast to talk about you and your work. I can quote your commentaries just as well as I can quote your movies. Mentioning you on my dating profile was the thing that prompted my fiance to first talk to me. I personally thanked you in the first page of my master's thesis. You've been a friend to me through your movies and commentaries and podcasts my whole life. It's just that right now it feels like you're trading sincere connection for references and it's hard to look past. I want to be able to connect with you again through the medium that we both love. And it kind of feels like you've forgotten the power of your movies and your stories. I just wanted to say I miss you and I hope I get you back soon. So with that, I give the 4:30 movie a 5.5 out of 10. Do you like Kevin Smith? Highly recommend it. If you don't, probably skip it. So yeah, that was my extremely painful review of the 4:30 movie. I feel really sad making this video. I don't know why I felt like I needed to do this, but I did. If you enjoyed this video and you want to watch more like it, you can subscribe, click the like button. And if you want to see what I'm doing in my life outside of YouTube, you can follow me on Instagram at 500 Days of Ari. I'll see y'all later. Bye.